So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. I'm back with what might be the last Katie Wells video. For reasons that I'll get into further in the video, I feel like I probably can't make more videos about him. Just doesn't feel right. However, if you thought he was bad in the last video, you haven't seen anything yet. This is just next level stupid.
Okay, let's see if that works. I don't have my little tripod, so... Okay. Good morning. It's been a while since I made a video. I've got a couple things I want to talk about, but that'll come later.
Oh good, because there are some things I want to talk about too.
Update you on my personal situation and my marriage.
Okay, look. It's not exactly a secret that I don't really like Katie Wells. And Katie, I know you're watching. And the reason for that is because you seem to think that my hypothetical Grindr profile was doing well, and therefore I'm gay, ha ha ha. Which I don't get. Just like my political and religious views, I don't really plan on getting into my sexuality on this channel. But, if I had a Grindr profile, whether it were doing well or not, wouldn't be something I would consider insulting, so heads up, Katie. But anyway, the reason I preface this is because I want to get some real talk in here. Look, I am sincerely sorry to hear that you may be having or have had marriage problems. That's some really heavy stuff, man. And yeah, granted, I don't like you, but I also don't wish any of that on you. I sincerely hope that whatever was going on there has been cleared up, because even though, let's be honest, unlike some other creationists, like say, in his image, I don't like you, Katie, but I still don't wish that on you. That is something I don't wish really on anyone. So I guess, good luck with all that, and yeah, that is not going to be a source of me making light of you on this channel. That's something I won't do. However, I am going to make fun of you for the rest of the stuff you say here, because, it's stupid.
But I want to address the term kind. It seems like Dr. Hovind keeps getting pigeonholed into this argument about what is a kind.
Okay, Kent Hovind is not a doctor. To be a doctor, you have to have a doctorate degree from an institution authorized to give them. Kent Hovind doesn't have any degrees from any institution that can give degrees. Calling Kent Hovind a doctor would be just like calling me a doctor because Bent Hovind decided to email me a doctorate degree. Now, about kinds, why does Kent Hovind so often get asked to identify kinds? Well, it's because he makes it a big talking point. He'll say, oh, you can't evolve outside of your kind, without ever telling us what a kind is in any way that would let us verify that statement. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at work, and your boss comes up to you and he says, oh, I need you to stop doing what you're doing. You're doing too many things that aren't important. Only focus on important things. And he walks away. But he hasn't told you what things are important or why. And then later on in the week, he comes up and he's angry and he says, I thought I told you only to work on important things. Why are you working on all this unimportant stuff? And then you reasonably say, well, I don't know what you consider important. So could you help me? And he says, no, it's obvious. Just do the important stuff. Who's in the wrong there? Clearly your boss. So, by the same token, until Kent Hovind or some other creationist gives us a way to verify, objectively, which organisms are in different kinds and what would constitute a change from one kind to another, then yeah, you're going to get bogged down in this. And rightfully so.
The emphasis is always trying to get him to say what classification kind is. It's not a classification at all. Not the way I read it in the Bible.
I mean, fair enough. I don't think the Bible is trying to teach you about biology or systematics or anything. But the problem is that if you then use it as part of your argument against a scientific theory, you have to actually put in the work to give it a rigorous scientific definition. And Kent Hovind is using it in an argument against a scientific theory, and you happen to agree with him on many of these things, as you've said in other videos. So, it's not really my fault or anyone else's fault on the side of, science that creationists have started to use this non-technical word in a way that requires a technical definition.
Genesis 1:12, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Anytime that kind is mentioned, it's relating to the object or the creature.
While many people have different beliefs about the Bible, its contents, and its truth, one brave man, Katie Wells, has a controversial new theory that words in Hebrew refer to things. Let's keep listening and see where he goes with this.
God created great whales and every living creature that moveth with which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. Okay? So everything will reproduce its own kind. It's not a classification. It's just saying that animals will reproduce what they are.
But that's what classification is, Katie. When you ask what something is, you're asking for a classification. If I held out an object and I said, "What is this?" and you said a book, that's the class of objects to which it belongs. When you do it with organisms, like say an animal, then you get scientific classifications. So if I put up this picture and you ask me, "What is this?" I would say, "It's a Malaysian tapir." And if you said, "What's a Malaysian tapir?" I would say, "Well, it's a member of the tapir family, which is a very small family that contains odd-toed ungulates with a trunk-like snout." I would tell you it's part of the order Paracedactyla, the odd-toed ungulates. So at some point in this classification, going all the way up to things like eukarya, that's where you think that God created something distinct. All this question is where do you do that and how do you know? Because if you can't answer that question, then there's no reason to take any of your blathering seriously. Now, of course, you've demonstrated that you don't even understand how words work at the very most basic level, so it's no surprise that you haven't given this much thought. But if you want to be taken seriously, or you want any creationist to be taken seriously, maybe you should give this some actual thought, rather than just dismissing it because you don't understand words.
Okay? Adaptation will take place. We see adaptation in a lot of things. For example, human skin pigmentation. Not everybody started out black. Not everybody started out white or Caucasian or Asian. Probably somewhere in the middle there. Probably Adam and Eve were somewhere in the median range of tan, and we have variations of melanin in our skin.
That doesn't sound right. But I'm no expert on primate evolution, so let's check in with our local primate expert, the Gutsick Gibbon.
Erica here, or Gutsick Gibbon as some of you might know me. Human pigmentation is perhaps one of the most adaptive features of our species. From the far north and the far south to indeed the center of our globe, we can see quite a disparity. Darker skin at the equator is, to put things quite simply, much more advantageous in order to keep one safe from UV radiation, while lighter skin, which is seen to the north and to the far south, is more advantageous for facilitating the absorption of vitamin D in a location where perhaps it isn't quite common. But which pigmentation came first? This is a fascinating question with very interesting implications just on where humans may have originated. Thanks to modern paleoanthropology, we do know that humans are a part of an ape-like lineage that started in Central Africa some 7 to 12 million years ago with an ape known as Sahelanthropus chadensis, or perhaps an organism not quite it exactly, but certainly very much like it. The finding of all sorts of different human lineage or human lineage adjacent species all across Central Africa can be corroborated with our genetic information. We know that the oldest human mitochondrial haplogroup is that known as L0 and sees its origin also in Central Africa, some 150 to 200,000 years ago. This is again corroborated with some very interesting later paleoanthropological finds that see the origin of both archaic and modern, anatomically modern speaking, Homo sapiens in the same location. So it's certainly starting to look like Central Africa is where we saw our beginnings. And with these 3 lines of incredible evidence, we know that the story probably looks a little something like this. After losing our fur, humans, being exposed to the immense heat of living in equatorial Africa, and indeed adapting to sweat quite a bit, had to figure out some kind of way to protect ourselves from UV radiation. Now, evolution being the tinkerer, we would see a selection for those with darker skin pigmentation, as it would have protected them from the UV radiation of the angry and sweltering sun. So dark skin would have been very in vogue as far as survival goes living in Central Africa. As our species migrated up and out, we would see all sorts of different adaptations to the far north, getting a bit paler, or maybe moving from there back to the south and indeed getting darker once again. Our origin form, though, was indeed very dark-skinned, and just gives us another excellent reason to underscore why racism is both stupid and whack. Back to you, Dapper D.
Thanks, Erica.
People have adapted to the climates that they live in. People that live in the sub-Saharan desert regions where it's beating sun every day, they have adapted dark skin, their bodies produce more melanin to create dark skin so that they can handle that environment, that harsh environment with the sun beating down all day. As opposed to, let's say, somebody in the Scandinavian region, somebody in the north, Norway, Sweden. They're very light-skinned. Why? They don't need the pigmentation. They don't need that dark skin.
Well, as we've already seen, since those variations didn't exist in the first population of Homo sapiens, that means that humans evolved. Huh. What do you know? Katie actually accepts the religion of evolutionism.
So, to say that somebody that's different than another one is evolved differently, what are black people? Are they not human?
Katie, although you're too dumb to realize it because you don't know how words work, you already believe that black people have evolved differently from white people who've evolved differently from Asian people. No, that doesn't make them not human. It means that they have adapted through evolution to a different climate while remaining part of the same species. I do not get why you even think this is a question, except that it's because you don't know how words work.
Are they not the same kind?
Well, they're all the same species, but since at the beginning of this very video, you said that kind isn't a classification, how do we know? We can't, because according to you, kind is apparently meaningless except that it refers to things, which again just shows that you don't know how words work. Not that you don't know how English works, but the very basics of how human words are used as symbolic references to concepts in a cognitive landscape. That is beyond you, Katie. That is the level of crazy that you're operating on. You are below a 4-year-old child.
You know, their parents were humans. My parents were humans. Weren't your parents humans?
No, my parents weren't human, but I guess I'm not really your target audience, and your target audience is probably almost all human. So fair enough, Katie. I'll let you have this one.
And you are the same kind as your parent. The parents will always reproduce their same kind.
Okay, so parents give birth, or I suppose produce, since, maybe they hatch or whatever, organisms of the same kind, which then go on to produce more organisms of the same kind. Well, that works perfectly well for clade, and since all clades are at least in principle possible to be classifications, I'm not sure that kind isn't a classification. So, what are you even trying to say? I asked that like he's going to tell me.
Kind is not a classification. Kind is a word. Okay? Stop trying to clobber Hovind and clobber Creationist because you are assigning a value to the word kind that doesn't exist.
Okay, so
hold up. I want to get this straight. You gave as your only example of a kind something that matches exactly 1-to-1 onto a scientific classification, that being Homo sapiens. You don't understand how words work, because saying kind is just a word doesn't mean anything. And you want people to stop asking people like Kent Hovind to define a kind, which he would have to do, and which he would be able to do if there were any reality at all to creationism. Basically because you don't understand how words work. That's your argument here. Okay, yeah, that works. I don't know, Katie. You're something else.
A kind is not a classification mark. Okay? It's a word. And it's used again and again just as a word.
Okay, here are some other words. Tyrannosaurus, Australopithecine, Nematoda, Mammalia, Diapsida. You know what all of these things have in common? They're all words that happen to be classifications. It's almost like pointing out that a word is a word, which is beyond obvious, doesn't actually tell you much else about that word.
Genesis 1:25, and God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth on the earth after his kind. In other words, everything will reproduce what it is. You might get some variations, you might get some adaptations,
which over time can add up and accumulate until divergent populations can no longer interbreed, and then eventually until descendant populations only vaguely resemble their ancestors morphologically. Yeah, we all know, Katie.
But in the end, two parents join together and will reproduce their kind. You get it? Good. Have a good day.
You have a good day too, Katie. I'll be honest, after the last video, I didn't think it would get much worse. But you went from having bad reading comprehension to having an almost pathological inability to understand how words work. I'm not actually confident that I can continue talking about you, Katie, because I think you might actually have a clinical problem with language processing. Honestly. So, this is my honest advice. And I still don't like you because you're still a jerk, but this is a separate issue. See a doctor. I'm not kidding. Make an appointment, because there might actually be something wrong with you that you can get treatment for. Because quite frankly, it's hard for me to listen to this and not think that there might actually be a problem. Which means I'm probably not going to revisit you because it's becoming increasingly clear that I might actually be making fun of someone who has serious problems. So, Katie, you probably won't take my advice. Frankly, because you don't like me, and the feeling's mutual. But just consider it. As for everyone else, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit like. If you didn't, hit dislike. Either way, let me know what you thought in the comments and share the video. Also, hit the subscribe button if you like this, and don't forget to hit the bell because that way you'll always be notified when there's more Dapper Dino. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I'd like to thank my patrons, especially my $20 and above patrons, Van Tovind, Ian Chen, Speed of Sound, Chris Love, Henry Hutanen, and Bob Knob. My patrons help me keep this channel going because, as you may know, YouTube is a very volatile platform. If you'd like to help out, my patron tiers start at only $1 a month, and it automatically gets you access to the exclusive patron-only Discord server, as well as early access to my videos and voting for what next topic should be. For example, my patrons tend to be the ones who decide which episodes of Things That Aren't Dinosaurs I'm going to do, as well as sometimes who I'm going to cover next in the next debunking series. If you feel like a monthly donation isn't right for you, but you'd still like to support the channel, remember, every like and share and comment helps the channel. But if you'd like to help in a more material way, I do have a wishlist for Amazon.com and a Teespring store. Links in the description. Thanks for watching.
So you
found the skeleton. How would you tell people that you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.